Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm just going to walk you through the oil and gas sector. Now, the biggest issue I want to bring out here very quickly is basically we're seeing a lot of rhetoric going on between Canada and the U.S. And a lot of the case in the U.S. side is being driven by Obama. Obama is not a big fan of oil sands because of the messaging that's around it. It's hurts the environment and all that, but yet he's okay with oil fracking, and we've seen some issues around that in terms of water treatment and all that. So I wanted to kind of show you in terms of the oil methods, in terms of policies. We've also heard Justin Trudeau speak about the oil sands and talking about resources and getting them to market, but the real reality is his key speaker and key promoter is Gerald Butts, and Gerald Butts is anything but per carbon. So that's two things you need to bear in mind when you're talking policies. The other thing that you need to talk about that drives policy as well is from taxation to environmental processes. So government policies are key here, like on royalty review. Basically, Alberta is looking at that, and maybe also the federal government might be considering that. So it's something you need to bear in mind. The other point I want to bring in here as well on the royalty side is the U.S. is charging about 12.5 cents as part of their royalty rate. That rate has been unchanged since 1920s. Now, you never hear the media talk about this, and it's critical to understand this, that oil companies in the U.S. had close to $90 billion worth of profit, yet Mr. Obama has yet to touch or looked at the royalty rates in terms of the oil production in decades. So you would think a government like the U.S. who's starved for cash would be looking at the royalty rates. Okay, and that's not happening. The other point that I want to bring in here as well is I want to make an adjustment to as well, is the fact is the states have their own royalty percentages, and it's usually based on oil land leases, and that's a big difference. Now, distribution, both countries, it's really rail and pipeline. Rail, we've seen some of the biggest issues with this in terms of train derailments. Now, the thing that you need to bear in mind with rail is that a lot of the rail is coming from the U.S. side, is driven by Union Pacific and all that, and that guy's basically Warren Buffett, so you need to keep that in mind too as well. I just want to bring you to the reserves. This gives you an idea that the bulk of the reserves are out west, but we do have rust offshore in the east coast, and that's off Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, but nothing's really said about that. And same thing that we talk a little bit about the Mackenzie-Beaufort area, which is northern Canada. You don't hear much about that. You only hear about Alberta and Saskatchewan because it's the oil sands. Let's talk about natural gas, because that's another area too as well. BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan control the bulk of the natural gas reserves, but yet there's some small pieces in the territories. There's some also pieces offshore in the east coast and New Brunswick, but nothing's said in those areas. Look at capital expenditures now. This is significant. This is money that's coming into the country from foreign investment to help develop resources. So when you hear about the balance of payment, this is critical. We need direct foreign investment into our resource sectors, and if business feels that they're not going to be able to move forward with projects that are profitable, they'll reconsider where they put that FDI. I just want to bring this up in terms of refineries. We've seen since 2005, we've seen 4 refineries close, and we've seen a certain amount of capacity lost as part of the overall refinery closures. Utilization, look where we were in 2000. We were up to almost 90% of our refinery utilization. We're down to 82%, and that's been consistent. Now, some of that has to do with downturns of refineries and all that, but there's many issues that go into impact that, and yet you hear nothing from Justin Trudeau around refineries. Let's talk about exports. Exports are very critical because they influence our trade deficit. So if we're going to basically say we don't want to be in the oil gas industry anymore, then we've got $97 billion worth of oil exports we have to make up. That's nothing ever talked about by Justin Trudeau or the opposition part. The opposition party is talking about it, but Trudeau never talks about that, and that's critical as part of the balance of payments as well as the trade deficits. I just wanted to show you quickly the energy reserves. This kind of shows you from electricity, coal, and where things come in terms of the imports. And you also see that we're importing about $43 billion worth of energy. But we do have a trade surplus, which is a good thing, and that's not talked about for the energy sector. Now, the other thing that you hear too as well quickly is about the oil and gas sector, about its carbon footprint. The oil and gas sector gets a lot of negative press. Is it perfect? No. But does it look like it's in terms of the overall scheme, it's not that bad. It's just made out to be a bad sector because people choose to pick on it. Thank you. Now, the other last thing I want to say here is I want to talk about the oil sector issues. Alberta's looking at a royalty review. Now, that's going to have significant impact on business. So if they come in and say they are going to hike royalty, then there's a chance that could have a negative impact on dollar and foreign direct investment. Second point, we're in a period of low oil prices. Huge volume of capacity has been added, but we have low demand because we have slow economic growth. So as much as Justin Trudeau says that we need to get our resources to market, it doesn't matter if there's no market to take them to right now. Yes, we should be cognizant of that, and we need to make decisions on that. That's where the lack of pipeline capacity comes in. The other point that I want to make is Justin Trudeau is bringing new regulations. Okay, now what's not discussed, and this is where Justin Trudeau seems to be lost on policy, is that we have trade agreements, investment agreements with different countries, and part of that is his business can't be hindered to the point where it's so difficult to do things that they get concerned about their investment. That can result in lawsuits in terms against the government of the slowness in terms of policies. That's never discussed by Justin Trudeau. Why? Because you're talking about a guy that's lived off a trust fund all his life, has no clue of the dynamics of business or what's required to move it forward. So that being said, these are key factors that are going to drive issues going forward as part of the oil sands. Thank you.